Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming this evening. My name is Dr. Kathleen Ruddy. I'm a breast surgeon, and I'm going to talk to you tonight on the topic of silencing breast cancer. The presentation is built around two concepts. The first is that words convey meaning, and that genes convey life. So let's begin in the beginning with words. With the alphabet. What is an alphabet? It's a series of written symbols that are used to create words. The words are given meaning. Sometimes they're given several meanings, and they can frequently be used in a variety of ways. They're collected in the dictionary for reference, and they're used in groups to create concepts and ideas. The words are separated by use of punctuation and by spaces between words and between sentences and between paragraphs. The ideas can be collected in books based on either a theme or an author. And then the books are collected in libraries. There are different alphabets, different languages, different books, different libraries, and many times the words from one language don't entirely convey to another language, right? So we begin with an alphabet. We have words that end up in books, that end up in libraries. Words convey meaning. Genes convey life. Before we get to the complicated subject of genes, let's just do a quick review of biology. Life has its own alphabet. The alphabet is the DNA. We have several nucleotides that are the alphabet, right? Adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. These nucleotides are referred to based upon their bases. You may have heard that there's a new nucleic acid that was just discovered, reported about 2 weeks ago. Nucleotides are connected here in chains, right? And they like to be paired, and they're paired in certain ways, T and A, C and G, always. And because of the chemical bonds between them and around them, they form the double helix. The genes themselves are the functional part of the DNA. There are other sections of the DNA that act as switches and controls, can act as punctuation, and then there are long sequences of DNA that are considered to be silent. They don't do anything, but then again, spaces between words don't do anything, but they're very important for processing the information. The DNA is kept in the nucleus, very concentrated in the nucleus. Where else in the cell can you find DNA? The mitochondria, exactly right. In the mitochondria. As a matter of fact, the most condensed DNA you'll find in the nucleus, but by volume, because there's so much more mitochondria, the largest volume of DNA is actually found in the mitochondria. Turns out that all of the DNA that's found in the mitochondria is inherited entirely from the mother. Did you know that? Yes. Half of your DNA comes from your father, half comes from your mother. All of the DNA in your mitochondria comes from your mother. And this researcher from Oxford has published several books. This is one of the more interesting ones, The 7 Daughters of Eve. He's been able to use genetic analysis to discover that all of the women and men of the world can be traced back genetically to 7 ancestral women, and he calls them the 7 Daughters of Eve. Okay, so the genes are sort of bound together like books on chromosomes, and the chromosomes are paired. And we have a chromosome library. The total amount of DNA in a cell is called the genome, and the total amount of protein that the genes make is the proteome. Genes make proteins, right? When it comes time to copy the DNA, this is a very brilliant system here, because the base pairs are joined A to T, C to G. The double helix opens, and these base pairs find their better half, and you get a complete copy. So you end up with 2 copies. Now, the problem is that DNA basically is in the nucleus, and it can't get out. It does not get out. It's sequestered in the nucleus. And all of the protein building activities and all of the activities of the cell are conducted in the cytoplasm. So how do you get the information from the nucleus out into the cytoplasm? Meet the RNA family. This is what the RNA does. Very similar to DNA, except the sugar is a little bit different. You have ribose. And in terms of a base here, you've got uracil replacing thymidine right there. For gene expression, which is the gene is going to be read and the protein made, the double helix unwinds a bit, and a copy of the gene is then made right here. Once that copy is made by messenger RNA, the strands come back together and the double helix is reconstituted. Now, like my cell phone and your cell phone, you have settings, right? On my cell phone, my oldest daughter's ringtone is a fire alarm. Her husband's, my son-in-law's, ringtone is the blues. The DNA, the genome, has settings. Promoters, which advance growth and proliferation of the cell. Suppressors, which act like brakes. Proto-oncogenes, which in and of themselves are not cancer-forming genes, but they can be mutated. And then oncogenes, which are cancer-forming genes, but in and of themselves are not sufficient. So you need a whole entire conversation. However, if you do carry an oncogene, you're headed certainly for malignant transformation. Hormones are proteins that are made in one tissue and excreted into the circulation, find their way into other cells based on receptors. So they see a receptor, they get into the cell, and what do they do there? They trigger gene expression. Hormones are very powerful. They control gene expression throughout the entire genome. And of course, things that are hormone-like, like dioxin, which is estrogenic, can have an impact on, obviously, all of the cells in the body. Anita and I were just playing with one of her apps on her iPhone, and she has an app called Hippocrates, which is sort of an advanced PDR. And I said, quick, take a look at low estrogen. I want to see if the metabolites of low estrogen of birth control pills are metabolically active. And it appears that they are. It appears that they are. We have to double check it, but it appears that they are, which is important. Why is it important? Because these active metabolites are being excreted by 100 million women a day.